Let's tell you about our latest episode in our climate focus series. Today we are going to Dambai because a man in Dambai has founded Dream Village, a sustainable farming and training center to nurture the next generation of climate activists. Located near the Oti River, it uses eco-friendly housing, solar power, and rainwater harvesting. Over 2 years now, the village will train local farmers and environmentalists in regenerative agriculture, promoting safe food production and environmental stewardship. On our Climate Focus series today, Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin examines how this initiative supports climate change mitigation.
My name is Clement Matomas and I'm the founder of Dream Village, Ghana. Our main objective is to provide a space where people can come and dream. Farmers can come and learn about regenerative agriculture, and a place to gather also the youth to empower them on agriculture skills as well as to become a nature activist.
Clement Matomasin is overseeing the village garden while other workers engage in various tasks to maintain productivity. Structures at the village are from mud-based construction materials such as earth and thatch, which are cost-effective and can sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere over time. The walls can also act as carbon sinks, storing carbon and preventing it from re-entering the atmosphere, thereby helping to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Clement says embracing locally sourced materials enables communities to reduce their carbon footprint associated with construction, a key principle underlining his Dream Village initiative.
So with regards to our housing system, we deliberately choose to build our houses using local materials. Indigenous architecture has been with us for generations, and some of this architecture have very good backgrounds behind them, why they build our architecture that way. For instance, the round huts help harness energy within the housing system so that at least energy, positive energy, will keep staying within the housing. Roofing it with thatch is available material, so it helps to sustain it. Instead of burning the bushes, we have the thatch that is being harvested to roof the houses. Materials from the soil are also easily available, so you can, within a space of 10 days, build a nice hut to stay in, which is for sustainability reasons or for affordability reasons, is easily doable by the local communities.
This is one of the sustainable housing systems that experts say can mitigate the shattering effects of climate change. Temperatures are rising across the world, and this kind of building is good for people living in hot areas like Ghana.
This building has actually helped, and it is a strong and durable building. Why? Because the thickness of the wall is thick in such a way that it gives resilience to any thermic, or is very strong and good for thermic performance. When it comes to the climate, it's very good because why? We don't use zinc, we don't use foreign materials, iron rods, so it does not allow heat inside it. So during the rain season, it's warm inside, and during the dry season, it's very cool inside. It regulates its room temperature by itself.
So we try to promote it in this generation where many young people are looking up to build very expensive and complex housing. We try to promote the use of indigenous housing and materials. So we do the thatch huts, which is one of our main building technologies that we use working with the local communities. We also use Nubian vault architecture, which comes from the Nubian communities in Egypt.
Solar panels installed at the Dream Village provides a consistent power supply sourced from the sun.
With the installation of solar and wind, for instance, we have abundant sunshine in the country. So it's quite unfortunate that we are not harnessing the power of this this solar or the power of the sun in order to power our gadgets. So with regards to water, we have different types that we prototype. We look into rain harvesting. We don't lack enough rain in the country. We have a lot of rain in this country. So to harness that and store it for later use is one of the best solutions for sustainable water solutions.
According to Clement, the Dream Village firmly believes in the transformative potential of regenerative agriculture to empower the upcoming generation of farmers. This approach aims not only to enable them to sustainably support themselves, but also to instill in them a sense of responsibility as stewards of the environment.
So since we focus on regenerative agriculture training, what we do is when we go into a community, we first identify what trees and crops grow well within that community. We work with them and integrate them into our farms because it is part of our mandate that Dream Village becomes food sustainable. It is possible to stay and live within the means of our ecosystem. So we try to become food sustainable, and by this we set up our own farms, which is what we call the syntropic farming system we use normally by integrating tree crops together with fruit trees.
Within the Parastipa, me Dream Village. Now, as I say, communities no, and by any barrier model, you say chemicals or modido, and money say assassino. And you say in the training and Kikaho. So the only trend there is a assassin, so it's a home. The assassin say.
As part of what we do is providing training. We notice that more and more young people are drifting away from farming because right from young age we are made to believe that farming is hard labor, farming is for the poor, or the stereotypes around farming. Unfortunately, that seems to be happening, and as a result, a lot of the young people are moving away into this so-called white-collar jobs.
Experts warn that rising temperatures and the effect of climate change are disproportionately affecting vulnerable populations worldwide, including those in Ghana. As a result, there is an urgent need to implement mitigation and adaptation strategies similar to those practiced at Clement's Dream Village. Clement anticipates that trainees at the Dream Village will emerge ready to enter the world and actively contribute to changing the narrative surrounding climate change. Their training will empower them to become agents of change, working towards the achievement of meaningful progress in the fight against climate change. A report by Mohamed Nuruddin.
I think the highlight of the report for me was that white woman digging and going at it. It was beautiful. But let's discuss some of the things that we saw, Benjamin. We'll be speaking to Dr. Ralph Zanya, and that's a PhD candidate at the University of Calgary, Canada. We'll also speak to Eric Atasono, who is a housing engineer. But I want to start with Dr. Zanya. Doc, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. How do you, I mean, the story already captures how beautifully that this Dream Village in Dambai is revolutionizing the sustainable farming and housing sector. But how do you see the concept of regeneration transforming Africa's approach to tackling climate challenges?
Okay, good morning, and thanks for having me on this platform. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Africa is currently facing climate apocalypse, which is threatening livelihood systems and our ecosystems. And the biggest challenge for Africa is to develop measures that would help communities cope with the adverse impacts of climate change. This new concept of regenerative agriculture is a set of practices that deals with conservation and restoration of food and farming systems. So it includes a host of practices such as soil regeneration, improving water cycle, improving the health of ecosystem services, in all to help livelihood becomes resilient to climate shocks on one hand, and also minimize or mitigate the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So something that is the initial cause of the climate change. So basically that is what the regenerative agriculture, that is what the concept basically talks about. And it involves using locally available resources, things that we tend not to value them, things that we tend to see them as waste, can actually be harnessed to promote sustainable livelihood systems to withstand the shocks from climate change.
Okay, and you've just, made it clear that it's not just in terms of housing, but regenerative agriculture can also help. I mean, we have reports here in Ghana about a looming food crisis. But so let's understand, or I want to hear from you, how important it is to involve local communities in either climate action initiatives or this regenerative agriculture in terms of the many benefits that we stand to gain as a nation.
Yes, so with regenerative agriculture, there are so many benefits that local communities can accrue from it. First of all, when you are able to utilize the resources within your vicinity, then it minimizes the cost of buying inputs that are expensive. So, for example, using the crop waste as mulch for your soil kind of minimizes the amount of fertilizer you need to buy. And these chemical fertilizers, they weaken the soil. After continuous use of the soil becomes impoverished as a result of the excessive use of the chemicals. So using locally available and organic waste to boost or revive the fertility of the soil is something that can reduce the vulnerability of local communities to climate shock. And you see, many people, many farmers in the rural areas find fertilizer to be expensive, and they are not able to use fertilizer because they don't know this new concept that can be very helpful to them. So when people are taught how to adopt regenerative agriculture, it will actually help them cope with the adverse impact of climate change, as well as saving them the cost of buying expensive fertilizers.
So in terms of adaptability, just for clarity before you move to your next point, in terms of adaptability, how easily teachable is it for local farmers who are not, privy to?
The adoption of regenerative agriculture varies from context to context. So the resources available in one region may not be the same resources available in one region.
Right.
In terms of the tree species, the plant species, and the locally available raw materials. So whichever region or area you find yourself, there are resources that can match the local ecosystem. So each and every locality has the kind of raw materials that can be used to practice regenerative agriculture. So what works in the Volta region may not work in Upper West region because we are in different ecological zones. So that means that the resources can be tailored to the particular context and be used to benefit farmers in that particular locality. So it can be practiced in every environment, but you need to make sure you understand the local context before you apply the method.
Okay. So, I mean, while Dream Village has made strides in sustainable farming, scaling regenerative practices across the country faces some challenges, I understand. So what do you see as the main obstacle to scaling up regenerative practices in Africa? And how can government, private sector, CSOs, all of us really bring our hands together and fix the gaps that exist?
Yes, so there are so many challenges to adopting these kind of environment-friendly and sustainable livelihood practices. First of all, we have people who are so stagnant about changing their ways of doing things.
Yeah.
In terms of cultural barriers, in terms of certain stereotypes or perception on how to go about their livelihood. So in order to make progress in the rural areas, which are the breadbasket of these countries, these cultural barriers need to be broken because it's something that has a good potential. And when you go to a community and the people are so reluctant to change, then definitely you'll find problems implementing these measures. Another thing related to it is sometimes they need people to try it and succeed before they all now run in their numbers to adopt it. So first of all is to break that kind of cultural constraint or impediment that could stand the way of implementing conservation agriculture. The next challenge could also be is that the practice of conservation agriculture is not cheap. It requires funding, it requires logistics, it requires training, which all comes down to finance. So within the government, when resources are available, or they can get support from NGOs or international organizations, that could help kickstart the program on regenerative agriculture, and then it will grow to become widespread. And also, some of the organizations, farmer organizations here are not well, like their organizations are poor. So it becomes very difficult for them to come together to benefit from loans or support. For example, you might see a farmer group and they are not well organized to be able to present or submit a collateral to take a loan. So all these are constraints that could stand in the way of implementing conservation agriculture.
Okay.
And the next problem I also find is infrastructure. And one of the pillars of conservation agriculture is water harvesting. So, you know, in Ghana or in West Africa, for example, our rainfall pattern is so variable. Sometimes people talk about not having enough rain, which I don't think is so. The problem is the distribution of the rain. The rains do not come at a time that the crops would be able to grow well. So it would just perhaps come at once, which would cause destruction or delay. But if you look at the average measurement of any year's rainfall, you see that it is good for crops to thrive, but it is the distribution. Now, when you have a good water harvesting system, after the rainy season, people can still grow crops through irrigation.
Yeah.
So infrastructure is very key to promoting conservation agriculture in Ghana, particularly in the dry season, where there's a lot of idling. People don't do work. And some may resort to migrating to southern Ghana, especially from the north, to do menial jobs and then come back when the season starts. So all these infrastructure we are talking about will help people provide food to secure this country all year round if the infrastructure needed is put in place.
Okay. So you're talking about lack of infrastructure, changing the mindset of laggards or people who are just slow to catch up with what's new. I mean, making changes in terms of regenerative agriculture and all that. Right before I let you go, I just want you to help me paint the picture of how crucial it is to foster activism at the grassroots level, and what role we as young people can play in shaping Ghana's future, our future climate action agenda?
Yes, so fostering activism in regenerative agriculture and other environmentally sustainable practices is key, because if you want something to be upscaled and adopted widespread, people need to see the benefit of it. Just like the case in Dambai, where they created a sustainable village to pilot this regenerative agriculture and other sustainable practices. When that could be a footprint that a lot of people can learn from. So after mounting it in Dambai, they could also try it in a different region, and then it goes on and on. In that way, people would see the benefit, people would see the importance of how this concept is, and the rate of adoption would be great. And this is very important because the youth are more or less like the link between the older generation and the next generation. And with the era of internet and social media, these things can be made to these things can be disseminated to different parts of the country for people to learn from.
Yes.
And then also, there's this project called the Green Africa Youth Initiative. It's a youth hub that is engaged in tree planting and other environmentally sustainable activities. They could also be used to educate people, educate farmers in all the rural areas and the food-producing regions to understand the importance of regenerative agriculture, the benefits it comes, and how it protects their environment from degradation and environmental decline. So this is something. But last that I would like to add is that when the youth are engaged in activism to promote sustainable agriculture or regenerative agriculture, it has a stabilizing effect in the sense that you would see that currently West Africa is so volatile. Neighboring countries are having conflict issues. And the biggest driver of this insecurity is lack of jobs. So with regenerative agriculture, when the youth are engaged in livestock herding, farming, dry season irrigation, it's a source of livelihood that would take their mind away from engaging in criminal activity.
Right.
So the stabilizing effect is something that is very important, that government needs to look at it.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Ralph Zanya. Dr. Ralph Zanya is a PhD candidate at the University of Calgary in Canada, for putting this in perspective in terms of regenerative agriculture. We will speak to an engineer soon, Ben, but my takeaway really from this is that amidst the challenges, some are thriving, like the Dream Village in Dambai, and it would help us if we are able to reciprocate or replicate that success story in other places so that people can see and then believe. Then the change actually starts happening. Let's get on the phone to speak to the engineer now.
Well, let's bring in Eric Atasono. He is a housing engineer. Eric, good morning. Mr. Atasono, can you hear me?
Hear you. I don't know whether you are hearing me well.
I can hear you now, not the first time, but now. So with this Dream Village, system in Dambai, of course, you heard my colleague just talking about how we can replicate this. But in terms of the specific environmental benefits, what eco-friendly housing materials and solar power bring to communities like Dream Village? And how can these be scaled up? How can they be, like she was saying, replicated moving forward?
When you want to deal with resilient building materials, eco-friendly building materials, the first thing we look at are materials that are locally available. So they are not materials that you would typically want to move from point A to B. So you probably go to a certain portion of the country. These are the predominantly available materials. You utilize them. You move to some other area, you have some other material. Now, in Ghana, widely, we have materials for construction, being limestone, we have shells, we have bamboo, we have our regular timber. Now we have moved from the typical hardwood, and then these days we are even moving to softwood. But we are talking about timber, we are talking about use of bitumen. Bitumen, if you go to the north, they use bitumen to plaster their buildings. They use bitumen for screeding. Down south, we don't do so, but there they do so. They also use cow dung. Cow dung is a very effective material. And so there are different kinds of material that are available. If you go to Volta region, somewhere up Ho, there are a lot of stone deposits. And so when they are building, they hardly use the kinds of foundations you see in Accra. They lay the blocks and the stones, and then once they have gotten some stable, what you call foundation, then they build the structure on top of it. So materials vary from location to location. And what we need to be doing will be to take advantage of what material is predominantly available in a particular area and utilize it. And I believe that that's what is being done in this community that is being developed up north.
In terms of the health benefits of these eco-friendly structures, what benefits health-wise do they pose or do they bring?
Most of these structures end up giving optimum temperatures. So in the heat of the day, you find the rooms very cool. When the weather is cold, it kind of regulates the temperature. So you are able to have good aeration. You're able to have good temperatures in the room, such that you avoid certain kinds of illnesses. That's one. Number two,
illnesses like what?
Rashes, skin diseases generally, and things like that.
Okay. So yeah. heat-related,
heat-related,
skin reactions and all that. Okay.
Yes. Now, if you want to look at some other ones, you are talking about reduction of carbon footprint. Reduction of carbon footprint is a very critical thing. Improved air quality. Now, with the kinds of materials we are using now, which are what we are known to be using in Accra, let me be very simple. We end up affecting the air quality that we have around us. And over time, it has a great impact on the carbon footprints as we have. It reduces energy consumption. And we know the problems that energy creates for us in the long term. And then we have reduction in general waste. Reduction in general waste in construction, because you are using materials that are readily available within the community. The gentleman who just went off was talking about using laterite, using earth blocks and bricks. These are materials that are readily available. There are communities in Accra here. There are communities in Accra here that previously were constructed fully with concrete blocks, with earth blocks. But today, if you go there, you will not find them. I'll give you an example. If you go to University of Ghana, they used to have bungalows that were constructed with earth bricks. University of Ghana, towards the south end of the campus. And you look at those buildings, you will not know that they were built with earth bricks. But they are very neat, very neatly constructed. And they are there. You and I will want to sleep in any day. But anytime we talk about earth construction, our minds go to the kinds of buildings that are almost dilapidated in our villages,
mud huts,
and so we think that they are unattractive. If you go to Achimota, there's a whole community there behind Achimota School. It's a whole community. All the buildings are mud, earth constructed buildings. And they've been there since 1924. And people are still living in there.
So these are very interesting. These are very interesting dynamics, and it also brings me to my next question: cost effectiveness. These materials you talk of, they are also cost effective, right? What can you tell us on that?
All right. So in construction, in housing, when you are talking about cost, we have cost, initial cost, and then we have cost in use. Cost in use is in the long term, maintenance and all of that. So if I build a house today, it costs me X amount of money. Over the period of the lifespan of the building, it will cost me so much to maintain. I put the two together, and then I determine whether the building is expensive or it is not. When you look at these locally available building materials or eco-friendly building materials, initially, the cost is slightly lower than the ones that we have adapted ourselves to. But if you look at it in the long term, it even gets much more cheaper to maintain. The challenge we have had is the way we utilize the material, the workmanship, and some of the technologies that must go in, so that over the long term, we do not have issues with maintenance. Maybe I can give you a very one example that comes to mind. When we use earth blocks, for example, it is advised that the eaves of the roof, the overhang, is made a bit longer. Why? So that we are able to protect the walling of the surface of the wall against ingress of water seeping into the wall and then gradually creating a problem for it. So if you use earth blocks to construct a building and you give it the regular overhang, you are likely to create a problem for the building. And so the people who are building these things, most of them are used to the very adapted materials that we have in the system, and then they go and build this one. And so they carry the same technology to that one and create a problem. And so we would encourage ourselves to use more and more of these locally available materials. But in doing so, we need to factor certain things into it so that we build it right, we build it well, using the right technologies, then it will last. And that is how come we are built in 1924, like I said, behind Achimota School. And they are standing and people are living in and they are happy.
So there are financial incentives in there as well. Once you follow the right principles, once you get it right during and post-construction.
Certainly so, please.
If you look at the question of sustainability and social responsibility in housing, my question then would be, how do these sustainable housing projects like Dream Village demonstrate social responsibility? And if I may add, how can developers balance sustainability with that other need to provide affordable housing? We know that one of our banes has been providing affordable housing. Affordable housing in Ghana is not affordable, at least not to the average man, and even in some cases, not to the middle class. What is your take on that?
I think that what our friends up north are doing is fantastic, and we need to encourage them any way we can. When I say we, I'm referring to those of us who are in the built environment as professionals. I'm referring to the states through its agencies, the ministries, the departments, the agencies. We all need to encourage it. And beyond it, we also need to put in place systems that would encourage. It could be tax rebates and all kinds of incentives that the state can offer.
I see.
One of the challenges we have had in improving some of these things or in introducing some of these things has been the fact that people will tell you, if this is good, how come the state is not adapting to it? If building earth block structures is good, why is the ministry not building it where they have opportunity to build bungalows or school blocks or whatever? And so I think that we all need to encourage ourselves. If we were going to build houses for government officials, government bungalows, and we would utilize some of these, and people see it, and they know that this building sitting there, 3-bedroom facility, is costing X amount of money, as compared to if you use these other adapted materials, it becomes a bit more real to the people. But as it is now, it's more like we are saying it, but we are not doing it. And that is why I'm excited about what our guys are doing up north. At least it brings some tangibility to the fact that it is doable. Affordable housing is doable if we use the right materials. Some years ago, I used to work with an NGO in Ghana. It used to be it was an American NGO. It's no longer operating, Habitats for Humanity. And we were building houses that people could pay with 6 months of their salary. And those houses are still dotted all over the country. We built over 7,000 of those houses all across the country, and they were very affordable. And so affordable houses, it is possible. But we need to put in place the right schemes. We need to tutor ourselves as people, and we need to make sure that we get the right technologies in place, and the supervision is also good enough.
Finally, I'd like us to, or maybe my penultimate bid to you, I'd like us to look at policies, regulations, frameworks that maybe are needed. You've already spoken about how tax rebates and others could be given to some, groups to sustain such initiatives. What policies and regulations need to be implemented to encourage this eco-friendly lifestyle, this eco-friendly way of putting up houses, of living, basically?
The first thing is that for us as professionals, for our state institutions, for our educational institutions, we need to begin training people in the use of locally available building materials. That's one. We should not only be looking at these adapted materials. We should also begin teaching and training how to build using these locally available building materials. That's one. Two, how to store the materials, how to use the materials. The issue of land is key. When it comes to affordable housing and some of these things, the question of land is important. We know how land is usually very expensive. And so if we can have land banks that governments, chiefs will release to some of these people, they will be able to utilize it, and it will bring down the cost of our construction. Another one is how we would set example, how our government and our state authorities will set example by ensuring that contracts that are awarded cover portions that would be required to use locally available building materials, stabilized earth blocks, bamboo, different kinds of timber, bitumen, all other kinds of locally available materials, depending on where the projects are sited.
Mr. Atasono, so to cap off the conversation from your end, Dream Village is out there in Dambai doing great things. For you, as a housing engineer, what would be your dream for Dream Village?
My dream for them would be for government, for the state authorities to come in and offer support to enable the cost of what is being done to even be dropped lower than what it is. That's one. Use that as a model to encourage many more Ghanaians to know that it is doable and that we should adapt to it. For me, those would be the two key things I think we need to do. If we're able to do that, I'm sure Dream Village will be excited that they have brought out this and we have all caught up with it. And it will help ensure that we are providing houses that are really affordable. And above all, we are also helping the environment by reducing the amount of pollution and all the other things that come with it.
We're grateful for your time, Eric Atasono. Thank you so much for joining the conversation as well. He is a housing engineer. And we've been talking in the studio about Dream Village and the great things they are doing in Dambai. Eco-friendly, of course, cost-efficient, cost-effective, like Eric Atasono will also mention. It can also save you from some heat-related skin diseases and more. But the something that came to mind, you know, there have been systems, brick systems. I remember the South African entity that was doing something. I think in Ghana, there are a few entities doing a few things there. Some types of bricks or blocks that are more eco-friendly, cost-effective, cost-efficient, and all of that. We need more of those because housing in Ghana, you look at the deficit, you look at the cost now of cement and everything, alternatives must be looked at. Maybe this is the time.
You can't build a house these days without at least 1 million cedis. And it just reminded me of what some of the students in the Renewable Energy Challenge are doing. I was told that also some of these schools, students, senior high school, have found a way to turn plastic into material to build houses. So plastic, but turn into brick, sort of. And I think it's also something that we should be applauding because sustainable, eco-friendly way is the way to go. There's still a lot coming your way on the AM show. We'll be right back in a jiff. Don't go away.